Today's episode is very special, right? We have a wonderful topic and we're going to be very intentional today. And the topic is the title actually of today's conversation is Grief Doesn't Clock Out. Now, as part of what I do, I like to think of performance as being something holistic. It's about the mindset, it's about the body, and it's about life. We're talking about grief because grief doesn't stay neatly at home. It actually comes to work with us. It shows up in our bodies, in our focus, our energy, our relationships, and our ability to perform. Grief is something that, every single human on the planet will experience, and yet it remains one of the least understood and least supported realities in our personal lives and in the workplace. My guest today knows this reality deeply, both personally and professionally. So, Christine, thank you so much for being here today. And I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be here today. So my name is Christine, as you said. I am Swedish, born and raised outside of Stockholm in Sweden. Professionally, I have an HR background. I've worked more than 20 years in HR functions in international companies, French and American companies mainly, covering Scandinavian and Nordic offices. And I left my employment and started my own company in coaching. And from the start, it was mainly about leadership and that kind of coaching, talent development and things like that. But that has evolved, and I've now added grief as into my coaching, and now also a grief educator.
So I have a direct question. What happened about 2 years ago?
That that day, almost 2 years ago now. 2 years ago, I lived where I still live, but my family was larger. I lived with my husband Kalle, which is like a nickname for Carl in Swedish, very common name. So Kalle and our two children and a dog. We also had an 8-month-old Dalmatian at the time. And in March, it was a Saturday morning. It was one of those mornings. Kalle and me had been out with the dog for a short morning walk. We had had breakfast, the whole family, and then we had done a workout session. Kalle, me, and my son. We usually did that on Saturday mornings, put up the computer, pull out some online training session, and we did that. So we did a cardio session that morning. And then he came out, he took a short shower, and he said, you know what, I'm going to go up and lie down for a while. I don't feel so good. And I said, okay, well, I'll take the dog out because I knew that he needed some exercise. And I said to the children, like, can you just check on dad, see if he's okay, see if he needs some water or something, and just call me if anything comes up. And of course, I didn't expect them to call. When the kids called me and said that there's something wrong with dad, and I froze. It was like this icy hand just squeezing my chest. And I rushed home with the dog as fast as I could. When I came to the house, I just rushed in and I relieved my son from the CPR, and I took over, tried to continue, but I could see on Calle's face that this was not good. And just a few minutes later, the ambulance came and took him to the hospital. And she said to me, we've done everything we could. We have the best specialists in place today, but your husband's life couldn't be saved. And there I was. And I was given a few moments to just try to take this in. And then I had to somehow get the children to come to the hospital. And they came there all hopeful, asking like, where is dad? Can we see him? Is he awake? And I had to tell them that your father is dead. And that is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, to having to tell them that. So that is what happened almost 2 years ago. He was there for breakfast, and by lunch he was gone. Most people who have been experienced something like that, it can be healing to talk about it. but it needs to be on our terms. I didn't even have the PIN code to Calle's phone because I never went into his phone. So, just little things like that, everything suddenly needs to be handled. And I was fortunate since I had my own company, I had my own business. I could choose very much myself what to do and when to do it. For many people, there is maybe a bereavement policy in place, which gives you a few days off, but it doesn't even begin to cover the grief support that is needed, because a few days in, you most of the times haven't even really realized what has happened. You're still in a kind of shock.
I remember myself when I lost my dad. I heard the news actually at work that he had passed. My colleagues could see that it was really bad. So they knew that my dad was sick. I had a lovely colleague actually, and she was like, she didn't know if she was coming or going. She was in the bathroom talking to me like, Lily, is there anything that I can do? I don't know what the policy was, to be honest. And I've been a manager myself, sales manager in tech. I had no idea, how much would somebody take, or if in Ireland there's even like a framework around this. I have no clue. But it's like we don't know what we should do. And I was thinking, how should I behave? Because I remember feeling guilty of being away for a week because I had a lot of things going on. So you don't know when you're like, okay, I need to keep on going because these people are paying me.
But nothing is normal for you anymore, or for me, or the normal is very new and different. I am learning, and maybe that is the first learning, that this is not something that will go away. Thought that grief was something that you would sort of work through and then be done with. Instead, it's about learning to carry this grief with you and still have a good life. Jay Shetty, and he described grief as having a stone in your pocket. And he said that in the beginning, when this has just happened, the stone is so heavy and sharp and it hurts so much and you can barely move because of the pain and the weight of the stone. And as time goes by, the stone will not become smaller and it will not go away, but you will become stronger. But grief is everywhere, and it's somehow strange that we treat it as some like bad luck or some bad exception that happened to a few unlucky people, where really it's a part of life. Strangers can feel very close when it comes to things like this. I've joined a grief group online, an American grief group, because I didn't find one that suited me here locally. People from all over the world are in this group, and I will never meet them in person, most of them. Most of them are far away from where I am, and still they can feel very close because they get it. We evolve, the grief evolves, but it doesn't go away. So the topics and the angles shift because you have different needs when you're right at the beginning from when you're several years in.
I wonder, did you feel it was affecting your health?
Yes, definitely. And I think it affected my health in all those aspects. And if starting with the physical reactions, when after Kalle had died, I had trouble eating. I felt nauseous. I didn't want to eat anything. I knew I had to eat because I knew I needed to refuel, and I also wanted to show the children that I was taking care of myself. I couldn't just let myself go. But it was like my body couldn't absorb the nutrition really, so I lost weight. I can't say I had real sleeping problems, which I know is very common, but I was constantly tired. I slept all night. I had harder dreams sometimes, but I still slept. But I couldn't go through a full day without getting a nap. I noticed that I lost more hair than usual. Skin, nails, everything it's like the whole body is out of balance and not in a good shape. A lot of the physical reactions to grief are the same as you can see in burnout cases. And yes, mentally as well, there is this thing called grief brain. which also shows up in similar ways with burnout and menopause, where the balance in the body is changed. I think most people quite easily imagine sadness as part of the grief, and it is, but there are so many other emotions showing up that I did not at all expect.
Tell us more.
Yes, like anger. You can be angry at the person who died. I haven't been that angry with Kalle, but I know that's very normal. That how could you leave me? It's a natural reaction. And what I've struggled with, and what I'm still struggling with a bit, because I'm still in on this journey, is this very uncomfortable numbness. But it's like I don't get really excited about many things, neither good things. I don't get really upset with bad things. It's like this filter covering my emotions.
What could be a possible explanation for numbness?
I think part of it can be like a protection of all feelings in grief is normal, even relief. If for example you've witnessed a person suffering from an illness, and when they die,
Yeah.
there can be a sense of relief, and then immediately you have guilt for, like, am I relieved that this person is dead? It's about being relieved that the suffering has ended.
So for me, I was working in tech. He was sick. He was very sick. He hadn't passed away just yet, but he was very sick. So it was very tough. And I was here in Ireland and I was very worried, going through a lot of stress. And I remember one day feeling super overwhelmed. And I could feel like my heart was beating so fast. And I said to myself, I'm going to have a heart attack at work. So I remember just being very logical and say, go to the bathroom. And for the first time in my life, I sat on the toilet. I put down the cover and I sat on it, and I just lifted my feet, and I just had my feet high against the toilet door so that the blood could flow back, because that's what I had learned when I did my first ed training.
Yeah, there is a phenomenon, or it's called the broken heart syndrome. Yeah, it's believed to be caused by this massive overload of adrenaline. And that's where the grief comes in. And it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't have to be related to the death of a person, but grief shows up in many other situations.
But I can think of one particular person that was in my team. I'm not going to say his name, but I remember him. I was very touched because I think he had been raised by his grandmother, and when she passed away, it was as if his mom passed. And I remember in my head, I was like, okay, how can I communicate? I don't want to be. I'm super direct as a person. I don't want to be too direct.
Mm.
Then there is the cultural difference based on where the person is from. It's very hard to navigate as a manager, as a leader. Now, naturally, you can go with your instinct, and some people would be comfortable with that, but most people wouldn't. I can see this as the only thing I was like, okay, I'm going to give him all the time and space he needs. So I told him, look, you do what you need. Like, don't worry about the targets, the this, the that. We'll get it covered. Somebody will take over. Take all the time that you need. You can take days off, or you can just not be here and not put the days in the system. That's the kind of manager I was when I felt like somebody who was a great performer actually. He needed the company to show a bit of love, and it's
Yeah.
hard for businesses to show love. So for me, that was the way I was making my business show love to him.
Mm.
But I don't know if I did a good job. I mean, only him could say it today, actually.
I think it's about normalizing something. When we look at, for example, diversity and inclusion, and being able to show up with your full self and be who you are at work. And I think that is what needs to happen with grief, because it's not about forcing everybody to share their grief stories. That's not the idea. But as it is now, many people feel that they have to hide a part of themselves when they go to work because it's not accepted, and so we pretend it's not there. But so somehow, if that powerful person could make it okay for it to be visible and normal, like other things.
Obviously, having moved from the corporate world into coaching like fully, I wonder, I always felt like in tech. So obviously I've done the typical business degree, master, whatever thing. And we've been, I would say, almost brought up thinking you have to be logical, you have to be rational. It's about performance, it's about showing up. And we have a lot of buzzwords, especially in tech. And I say we as if I was still there because I've been bred like that. But it's all about the performance, the just you all. I mean, it's a bit harsh for me to say that, but there is a playbook on how to be successful, on how to communicate when you're in leadership, when you're a manager, when you're a leader, when you're an employee who wants to be promoted. Don't show weaknesses, just show strength. Show that. So we all learn to be completely polished and almost polish ourselves as well sometimes, the way we look, the way we act, the way we dress. So I wonder, where is the space for feelings? Like I coach, like yourself, a lot of people, and I see a lot of people in tech, salespeople or even leaders. It's even when they feel a certain way, it's like, no, 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 I keep on going. Yeah, no problem. I'll do this, I'll do that. But it's like, when do we are responsible as well as people for feeling uncomfortable about discussing our feelings and emotions. A lot of people are made redundant sometimes these days, and it's about grief as well.
Demand, or that this pressure that we have to behave like almost like robots, just going through life without being touched by anything that happens. I think there's a misunderstanding too, that if a company is investing in support or caring for the employees, that it will be at the expense of profitability and the success of the company. But that is not the case. When people can show up and be their full selves and feel accepted, validated, acknowledged for who they are and their experiences, that builds trust, and that drives engagement and commitment. And we know that engaged and committed employees produce more. So the productivity is affected, and the other way around. If you don't feel accepted and validated and seen, and you feel like you need to hide grief, for example, that can lead to disengagement. It can lead to like sick leave and absences and burnout. And those are red flags for HR departments and businesses overall. So there should be like an incitement here to really look into this, because there's much to gain.
It's usually we see transformation in people when they shift their energy, and because you've been through it yourself and you've worked on yourself, uh, with the help of other people, uh, now you understand how to support other people.
I think in most cases, saying something is better than saying nothing. And I think one of the reasons people feel so uncomfortable approaching someone in grief is that we have this like default setting that we think that we need to come and offer a solution. We are problem solvers, many of us. So it feels very uncomfortable to approach a person and not knowing how to fix it. But in this case, grief isn't a problem that you can fix or that you can solve.
Oh my God. This is
Yeah.
very powerful.
So not saying things that start with at least they have a good life, at least you got many years together, because that just minimizes the pain and the loss, and can even cause this other person to feel guilty for not being more grateful. Not saying that everything happens for a reason.
And this is really powerful what you're sharing, because what if we can even learn from work, as in this being an initiative from businesses to provide that type of coaching for their employees. And that could be their leaders, so that the leaders would know how to support employees. And as well, maybe offer a coach like yourself to employees as part of a benefit when they go through something like this. And to me, there is an element as well where, you know, how we had to educate people on diversity. Now it seems like, oh my God, this is so boring because we've been all kind of educated. At least we believe we have. Imagine if businesses could educate people on grief, but then people go back to their lives. I mean, even though we spend 75% of our time at work, but when they go back to their lives, that would help them have better lives because they will be able to connect better with other people, support better. So it's like the impact businesses can have on people. And I like to say, it sounds very cliche, on the world.